One of the two main theme parks in northern Italy is Gardaland. It's located on Lake Garda, kind of in between Milan and Venice, and if you want to get more particular, it's kind of in between Verona and Brescia. There's other stuff to do around Lake Garda. There's another amusement park, some water park stuff. Lake Garda is kind of a tourist attraction in and of itself, so as a result, Gardaland does get some pretty big crowds. When I went, most everything was over a 30-minute wait. It didn't really get too bad. Of course, around lunch, those peak hours, it was the worst, but never really got above an hour. Still, lines were pretty manageable, but definitely not low. Gardaland is a Merlin park. They're the operators of a lot of stuff in the UK, like Alton Towers, Thorpe Park, as well as Heide Park in Germany. And overall, it's a really nice place. I enjoyed my time here. Looking over their ride lineup in terms of coasters, they have Oblivion the Black Hole, which is a really fun B&M dive coaster, Raptor, a nice B&M wing coaster with some great near misses. I have reviews up on the channel of those two, so if you want me to go kind of more in depth with those, check those out. I probably won't put them in a card. I'll forget. They might be in the description. If not, just go to the channel pages. They're the latest two videos to be uploaded. Anyway, Shaman is actually, I kind of want to talk about this for a little bit. Shaman is a really underrated Vekoma looper. I know these things get a lot of hate, and Shaman really does as well, but I found this to be a really smooth, intense ride. I only rode once in the front. Only rode once due to the line, but I definitely don't regret standing in that line because this is a really underrated ride. I'd say it's the number 3 in the park. I really enjoyed Shaman. Next up is a ride that I really did not enjoy, Blue Tornado, my first Vekoma SLC, and really the first coaster I've come off absolutely hating. Only rode this once. I rode this in the front too, but that did not help at all. This is just awful. Do what you gotta do to get the credit, but I'm warning you, this sucks. They also have a water coaster. RCDB actually doesn't classify this as a coaster, but a lot of other sites do, and I definitely think it is because it has coaster track, coaster sections. It's Fuga da Atlantida, however you pronounce it. It's a really fun ride, kind of has some dead spots in the middle, but 2 really fun drops and some great theming. Mammoth is their mine train. This actually gets really long lines, so definitely hit it when it's not as busy. It's a fun mine train. It's got 3 lift hills, some nice theming. Again, Gardaland just does a pretty good job with their theming. On ride isn't too much except for Mammoth, Fuga, the rides where they really can have theming. Obviously, on something like Oblivion, there wouldn't be a ton of on-ride theming, but Mammoth does a really good job mixing theming and some pretty good thrills for a mine train. The 3 coasters that I did not have a chance to ride were Kung Fu Panda Master, whatever it's called. It's their Wild Mouse. It had a really long line, so kind of just skip that. Ortoproco Tour, that's a wacky worm. It's not a wacky worm, it just has a wacky worm train. But yeah, skip that as well. And then Sequoia Adventure, their SNS Screaming Squirrel, is SBNO. Something you might notice from this is that Gardaland doesn't really have a standout coaster. They have Oblivion and Raptor, but I mean, those are just a B&M dive and a B&M wing coaster. They can't really carry a park. So I think what Gardaland definitely needs is that one standout attraction, a headlining ride for the park. Not really sure what it could be. Maybe a wooden coaster might work. Something from GCI, Gravity Group, I don't know. Maybe a launch coaster. I mean, there's iSpeed a couple hours away, but still, there are definitely some gaps in their lineup. Some other rides, they have an Intamin Floating Island, which gives really nice views of the park and the surrounding area. Their new for 22 dark ride is Jumanji The Adventure, I think it's called. I know it has something to do with Jumanji. This always has a super long line. In fact, I waited about an hour and a half for it, and let's just say it wasn't really worth it. It's definitely a unique perspective on a dark ride. But overall, I kind of felt it was underwhelming and definitely not worth the wait, so you can skip that. I know it's their new ride and everybody's rushing to it. It might not be as crowded in a year or 2. They also have a River Rapids ride that's down by Fuga. I did not ride that. Sadly, it was pretty crowded, and usually I skip River Rapids rides at parks. And a drop tower called Space Vertigo. Now, this isn't really that tall, but it's really powerful. I'm not sure who manufactured it, but this little thing definitely packs a punch. So that's their ride lineup. Like I said, no notable headlining attraction. That's something they definitely need. But other than that, it's a nice little collection of rides. So as you enter the park, you're going to drive up, and something that I noticed was kind of weird is I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see any of the coasters, any of the rides. Usually that's something you're able to do, especially since they have a few taller rides. Maybe it was just that day, but I couldn't see anything. So parking is €6 when you get up to the gate. And there's actually a really nice plaza before you enter the park. It's got a waterfall, a tunnel, everything with like Gardaland on it, and there's also a rotating fat dragon. Waited 45 minutes to get into the park, so that was kind of an indicator of how crowded it would be that day. It was a Thursday in late May, so I mean it's a weekday, but I guess it's kind of during the summer, so. But the 45-minute wait can be bypassed by once arriving earlier. Kind of waited in a little line for parking, and there was traffic, so I didn't get to the park as early as I would have hoped. But maybe you could go into the far right lane. I thought it was a pass holder lane, but a friend who went to the park a few weeks later said it wasn't, and he was able to get in way easier that way. So I guess you'll just have to find that out for yourself. So like I mentioned earlier, the park is themed really well. There's a lot of distinct themed areas. Some that stood out as being particularly well themed were the Wild West area. A lot of European parks have Wild West areas. This is probably one of the better ones that I've seen. They also have a cute little Peppa Pig land. Of course, didn't really spend much time in there, but from what I could tell, it was really charming and cute. Fantasy Kingdom's another one of those little charming areas. Didn't spend too much time in that either, but it had some nice decorations. The coasters aren't really that themed, but there's stuff around them. Going back to the wait times, yeah, there was pretty much 45-minute waits for most things. They have wait time signs and an app, but unlike other parks who usually overestimate the wait time, like if they say it'll be 75 minutes, it'll usually be around 60. Gardaland undershoots it, which is kind of frustrating because they say it's going to be 30 minutes and then it's like 45 or something. It's kind of the opposite, and I thought this would just be an isolated incident, but no, this is how it was on all the rides. So that was a little bit frustrating, but like I said, there is an app which I discovered halfway through the day. It definitely helped knowing which rides were good to go to, especially since a few of them closed during the day. I know Mammoth was down for about half the day. Overall operations were okay, multiple trains on a lot of the rides, but the dispatch times weren't that good, weren't horrendous, but definitely could have been done better. Talking a little bit about food, I had one meal. It was just kind of a quick burger by Blue Tornado. It wasn't really that good. Obviously, if I would have eaten at a better restaurant, that means better food. Kind of my fault there. But I also had a kind of a slushie that was really good later in the day. It was really cheap, like basically every food item in Italy. I don't know how they make that great pizza and everything, but it's super cheap, way cheaper than it really is anywhere else. So the food's okay. Coming from this park, I would have expected it to be a little bit better, but like I said, that's my fault. So overall, it's a pretty nice park. It's well themed, like I said. The rides aren't too good. I mean, they got a couple good ones, but they definitely have a solid collection, not a standout though. I enjoyed my time here. I'd definitely say that Mirabilandia is the better park in Italy. Gardaland is probably mid-tier out of the parks I've visited in Europe so far. So for Gardaland's grade, I'll be giving it a B. I feel like that's pretty fair based on the day that I had here. It probably wasn't the best circumstances with the crowds, and it was also really hot when I went. But I definitely enjoyed my time here, and if I had the chance to get back here, I would, but I probably never will. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned to the channel for more stuff.